I know most people don't send Christmas cards anymore, but we still get a few in the mail each year. And some of them are so beautiful, I just can't throw them away. Well, I've got a project where we can use some of those gorgeous cards. Have you ever had an idea for a project that you've seen somewhere that you've always wanted to try, but you just haven't done it yet? Well, that's me. I was inspired years and years ago by this beautiful transfer decoupage craft that my husband's grandmother used to do. And we had a few pieces like these from her. I'll show them to you here. Well, as a result, I've saved Christmas cards over the years and collected them when I find them. I've even had people give me theirs that they've collected for years, and they've sat in a box. I have purchased glass ornaments to use to make them, and the sponges, and the Mod Podge, all of which were still sitting in my crafting area in my garage and just waiting. Well, a few weeks ago, I joined the Plaid Creative Community, and with that, when you get accepted, you get this great gift box, and that started my project for me. I can't stand to have things that I am not going to use, so I have to find a way to use them. So in this great gift box, there were, you will see, I'll show you the unboxing of it, paints and decoupage stuff and brushes and all different kinds of Mod Podge. And I said one day, I have to do this project now. I've got this stuff. That's what I can do with it. So here is, I think it's very much vintage, if not even antique technique for transferring those great images from cards or really anywhere in print onto Christmas globe ornaments and preserving them for years and years. So stay tuned and we'll show you exactly how to do it.
Love the paints and the Mod Podge and the applicators and the brushes that came in this box. Now, you may surmise that I am not an artist. I don't paint. So I really didn't know quite what to do with these. This is called a ceram coat. I assume that means that it's for ceramics. Then there's the Mod Podge. Then there's something called folk art paint. Many different beautiful colors. Man, it was just such a gift. And then there is called apple barrel paint. Now, I don't know what to use for what, so I am experimenting, and you're just coming along for the ride. That's a decoupage press, and then the brushes. Now, you're going to begin with needing an ornament, a glass ornament, and with an image that you'd like to transfer onto that ornament. Once you decide that, and I will recommend that images that are smaller work easier, especially when they're on cards. The cards don't bend around the ornament quite as easily as something that maybe isn't quite so stiff. So, but then they can cause problems later. So I've got one in progress and one I'm ready to begin here. So you're going to cut your image. Oh, you need to have out I use this little plate as where to place my paints. I have the brushes out, and I have a sponge, and I need to have the Mod Podge. And the Mod Podge that I used for this first step was the satin finish Mod Podge. They're all just water-soluble glues, but this is the satin matte finish. And that's what I needed to use for this one. So the first step is going to be to cut out your image, and I did cut my image out very closely to the edge that I wanted. This may not have been the greatest idea because occasionally in a later step I did have trouble with the edges kind of disappearing on me. So maybe you don't need to cut as closely as I did. But you're going to cut out your image and cut it as much as you can. It is going to have to fit around this globe, which is why I chose to cut very close to the edge of the image. I thought it would make it easier for me to kind of wrap it around and get it around this globe. Now, once you apply the Mod Podge, it does become more pliable and easier to kind of wrap around your globe. But again, maybe I should have left a little extra as I was cutting this image out so that as I did the next step, I may not have had any loss. Now this next part is what is a little counterintuitive to me. You are going to take your paintbrush and dip it a little bit of Mod Podge on it, and you're going to paint the front of the image. You're actually going to paint the Mod Podge onto the front of the image, not the back of the card, but the front, because you will be then applying that to the ornament, and the Mod Podge is what is going to allow it to adhere to the ornament. So you will not see your image as you apply it onto your ornament. It is going to be the back of the image or the back of the card. And here you can see I am getting the Mod Podge, and I lost a little bit of his hat, but no worries. I was able to get that back attached on there. But yes, you paint it all over his face, all over everything you need to cover, especially the edges of your card need to be covered really completely. But no worries, if you get it on the ornament, as you're affixing it on the ornament, you can stick your brush in underneath and get a little bit more Mod Podge on wherever it is you need it. So now you're going to flip the image over, and so that you see the back side, and just affix it, press it down, hold it where you need to. Again, you're taking something flat and putting it on something that's a sphere. So it's not going to be perfect, but as the Mod Podge dries, I was able to get as you can see here, I was able to get that other little piece back there. And then where it's sticking out, the card is, I was able to put my brush with the Mod Podge underneath there and get a little bit more Mod Podge on it and get it to lay down flat. Every place that the card adheres to the ornament is where the image will transfer. If the card does not adhere completely to the ornament, then you may have some spaces where the image does not transfer. And that's what is going to give you that image that's left on your ornament for you to work with later. Just keep working with it. If it is not sticking as the Mod Podge begins to dry, it will be more tacky and it will stick down better. This is not a craft that goes quickly. This is a craft of patience and of just detail, I guess, patience and detail. And it does just take a little bit of time, like I said, to work this card, which is flat and stiff, into a place where the image can actually transfer onto something that's a globe. So again, patience and just a little bit of time and working with it, and you will get a pretty decent result even on the first time. This is my second one, so I thought this one might be better, but I actually think my first one was better. Beginner's luck, you know. And I think I'll get better as I pick better images. But again, just keep dabbing Mod Podge underneath, flattening it out. As the card gets damp with the Mod Podge, it does become more pliable and it does get easier to work with. Try to work out those little creases. They will leave a crease in your image that you can deal with that. It's not huge, but it will be easier. The fewer creases you have, the easier it will be on the next step. I decided to use the image of Santa's bag and toys, or toy bag, for the opposite side of the ornament, or just around a little ways around, and to do that in a manner that was separate. Now, the toy bag is pretty solid at the bottom and very round, and I knew it wasn't going to go around the ornament easily, so I did trim some little wedges out of his bag to allow it to kind of lay down onto the ornament a little bit better. I do think that helped, although my transfer of the toy bag was not great. It did need a little patching and a little work because it was very difficult to get around the ornament. Like I said, I think I would have had really good success if I had used very small images and put maybe many of them on the ornament, and I think that would be that's going to be my next try anyway, and to see if I can get a little bit better success with that. But again, I cut around all the details, and then using the same technique, applied Mod Podge to the face, and then just worked to adhere it as best I could around the ornament, getting it to stick down. And then at that point, once you've got all of the images applied to your Christmas globe, then it's time to let it sit for 24 hours. This is really important. My first one, I thought, oh, it looks dry, I'll start messing with it a bit. And it really doesn't work very well. 24 hours is a good time to let it really get good and dry, and that allows that image to really be stuck and adhered to your ornament well. Like I said, this is not a craft that goes quickly. It is a craft of stages and multiple days with time to dry in between. So that's why I thought it was kind of fun to have more than one ornament going at a time. That way I had something I could work on. When one thing was drying, I had another ornament that I could be working on and getting a little bit further along on the stage, on the progress. The next step on day 2, after your 24 hours of wait time for this to dry, is to get out your sponge. And you do need to dampen that sponge, get it good and wet, and then squeeze it out so that it is just damp. And you will be using that sponge almost as kind of a sandpaper, but it will moisten the image, the card, the back of the image, and that's how you will remove the back of the image, is with this damp, moist sponge. And you'll see you just begin in one little spot, and you get it damp. It does take a bit for it to get started. And be very careful of your edges. This is where I lost some of my edges by rubbing too hard, rubbing too quickly, and not making sure that the Mod Podge was completely dry. But you'll see, you just continue to work on a section and just gently rubbing, and actually you'll start to see the paper starting to kind of roll up onto your sponge or off of the ornament. And again, this is a craft of patience and of kind of endurance. You can see now that the card part, the paper part of the image is starting to soak up some of the water from the damp sponge, and it's beginning to come off more now. Pretty soon you're going to see that little bit of the toe of the stocking kind of appear out of almost nowhere, because the back of the card will see it's coming off. It's kind of rolling off. This is also not a very clean craft. It can be messy, which is why I have these crazy little dory placemat on my table, so that I can pick that up and wash it off really good with the mess that I made. So here the stocking is beginning to appear. You can see the image, and once you get the paper, the paper backing off of the image is usually pretty well adhered to the ornament. But again, it's patience, and I did work on this and get most of the paper off. Then I let it sit and dry overnight, and I came back to it and got a little bit more paper off. So the advantage to this craft is you can let it sit and come back to it. It's not something that you have to get done all in one time. But that is really the next step, is removing that paper, the card, the backing, until you reveal the image. And it's careful, and it's a little slow, but it is really fun to see that image start to be revealed as you are just wiping across it. Now, while that ornament is drying, I'm going to move to the ornament that I had already in progress. Now, the image came out pretty well on this one. I did get some loss in some places, and I thought, what can I do? I mean, I even rubbed so hard in a couple of places that I took the white off from the ornament itself. It wasn't even a place where I had adhered any of the image. So I decided that I would embellish this. Now, this is something that Grandma did not do, but I thought, with all these paints, I will embellish the image with some paint. And again, I am not an artist at all, but I'm pretty good at paint by number or coloring books, like coloring in lines. So I thought, let me just use the transferred image as like a coloring book, and let me fill in what I feel that I lost. So you can see the little red berries. I kind of really wanted those to pop. They were there for his or her like hat. And so I started with a little dab of red and the tiniest brush, and I painted in those red berries. And as I got a little bit of confidence, I painted more and more. It is not by any means perfect, but I did allow the colors to really come through. Now, if you do not want to paint, and you certainly don't have to, you can just at this point be ready to just cover this with the high gloss Mod Podge, and that will bring out your colors, even though they look a little muted and like maybe some more paper could have been removed. I was starting to lose the image in places, so I didn't feel I could remove any more paper. But as you apply that high gloss Mod Podge, you will see that it really does bring out those colors and removes that kind of cloudiness or that kind of blurriness that seems like there's paper still up on it. So that is an option. That is how Grandma did it. But again, I had all those paints you saw, and I thought a couple of places, like in the scarf here, I had lost a little bit of the red. I thought this is what I can do to make sure that it gets filled in, is I'll just fill it in with the paint. So I continued to paint using my transferred image as kind of my coloring book, and painting in the lines with both the red, and then I moved to some black so I could get those fringes really to pop out. And I think added some green. And then I used the white paint and I kind of dotted it with a different brush to try to give it some texture in the actual snow of the snowman. So get creative, be free with what you've got here, and just go for it. I mean, I suppose, what was I going to do? I've had these ornaments sitting around for years. If it didn't turn out very good, I'd just throw it away. But I think it ended up just fine. So like I said, I did the paint embellishment, and then I did let that dry for 24 hours. Before I came back with my final coat to give it the final finished gloss. The snowman ornament is completely finished. He has his high gloss coat and it has dried for 24 hours. You can see the shine in the paint, and it does, again, I am no artist, but I came out for a very first try of this particular craft with something that at least I felt I could hang on the back of the tree and say I did it. And so I wasn't too bad. I do think it's a technique that I will get better at as I do more. Now here's the second ornament. It does have some paint applied. It does not have its final high gloss coat, which is why some of those images still look like they're just kind of in the background. Once I get the high gloss coat on this, those images will pop out and really stand out, and he will have the high gloss that the snowman has. And again, I think I got some ornaments that I would be okay to hang on our tree. Probably in the back, but they'll make it on the tree this year. I hope you had a fun time watching. I hope you give it a try, and may God bless all the work you do.